Would I rather just sit on his face and get her done? Absolutely. In some respects, absolutely.
Welcome back to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
I'm Emily. Thanks again, guys, for joining us on another awesome episode here at MUSE On the Mic. Excited you're here. Thanks for everyone subscribing, tuning in, liking. Make sure you share the video as well because we're growing and I'm loving it. Make sure you join us Mondays on YouTube, Wednesdays on Patreon, and Sunday nights on Patreon for a little spicy laugh too because we love dirty humor. Riley, tell everyone what we're getting into in this topic and this episode. I know this is going to be a good one.
Yes, so we're going right back to Twitter, or X as usual. It's a post we saw from the burnt out hooker that makes you think, as a sex worker, we all have our story, our backstory, our fake story. But it's a little jarring when we come to find out that sometimes clients have stories too.
It's so it's weird and it's funny, yet it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it
they're no
shouldn't be.
different than us, right?
Mhm.
Like privacy is privacy is privacy.
Yep.
And I think it's more expected with us, right? Everyone assumes there's a stage name. And
Mhm.
so it's a common client question sometimes to be like, what's your real name? Tip of
Right.
advice, guys, never ask that question. We hate that question. But anyways, it happens, right? It's a common
Yeah.
question. It's a common inquiry or like something people wonder. I think even more with social media. And it can be a little harder to hide your identity and maintain your privacy because of things like social media. So I think on our end, as like owners, workers, anything on that side of the coin, we are very conscious of those efforts. We're very purposeful in those efforts. And you're right, we need a backstory, a front story, a sideways story, and a story who happens when someone does figure out who you are. Like we need
Right.
a lot of cover. And you meet a client and he's like, hi, I'm Frank. And you're like, hey, Frank, how are you? And you just assume he's fucking Frank because why?
Right.
He's not on the stage. Why does he need a stage name? And yet they concoct some tales. Some tales are told, some fibs.
I'm not mad at it. I think the interesting part is the shock behind it. Because I think I would assume someone's name might be a fake name. I get not everyone wants to roll with their real name, especially if it's a known
True.
name, something like that. But when we get into like the details, like you're building that connection with the client, you're getting to know each other, and you're actually getting to know their side of the fantasy story, it gets a bit wild.
It gets wild. It can be very confusing.
Mhm.
And I feel like depending how you find it out, it can really throw you off. Because our job is to always like stay in character, to stay in the role that we've created. It's like an onset offset moment, right? Like,
Right.
but yet, lots of actors that when they're committed to a role, let's say filming is 6 months long, some people don't like to break character. They want to stay in character because it makes them act better. There are elements of that, I think, with sex work because the work is so personal that even if you're just going back into the staff room and not with a customer, you still maintain your work identity, right?
Mhm.
You may still carry on some of your backstory, your fake story, even with coworkers to protect your identity. It really depends what your real life is like, right?
Yeah.
And some people value that kind of privacy more. Some people require it a little bit more. Some people don't. And they're like, it's cool. You can know who I am. Add me on Facebook. Like, it's
Right.
fine. But when it's like the choice is taken away and then you find out I've had this phenomenal like 6 year long relationship with Frank and Frank's like not even fucking Frank,
Julio.
really loopy. It throws you in a way that again it shouldn't, but it does. And
Mhm.
what if you find out that news when you're naked? What if you find out that news by accident? Like I've got a story I'm going to tell later like that was by accident and it was fucking jarring for me.
I
So
know.
I found this so relatable. Let's dive into the original tweet. It's a 3-tweet thread and it's sweet. It's a little like heart-wrenching and hilarious to me all at the same time because
Yeah.
it's weird. There's so many weird aspects of this business. And I love this one. It's behind the scenes that no one thinks about. Okay, so burnt out hooker, which I love that name. I think it's so funny. We all get burnt out.
I do.
Here's what she says. I'm feeling really devastated right now. For years, I've had a regular who made me believe he was a widower who taught at a school for kids with special needs. I was drawn into this story like a dumb baby hooker, and I developed a rapport with this guy. Corny as that sounds. I don't think that sounds corny. I think that's beautiful. But anyways, I digress. Anyway, this guy ended up being on a special rate, with me thinking that he can't be flush with money with this kind of job that he works, which is very kind of her to be considerate of. Now, I find out that this pathologically parasite is a pro landlord that cheats on his still very much alive wife. I feel stupid, naive, and I hate these shitheads sometimes. Worst thing, I would probably just have to pretend I never found out and keep this dipshit around because I can't afford to lose clients at the moment.
I love
Now,
love her honesty.
her
I
honesty
feel
is
like
so,
she has
so
that
refreshing.
edge because she maybe got a little invested. She feels for him. And clearly, if she's giving him a different price point, she does have like a compassion or sympathy towards him. So I guess that's where it comes from. I don't know. I mean, it is a fantasy, right? And I mean, us, we have aliases, and some of us even have fake aliases beyond that.
Mhm. Yep.
So I think we just have to accept that in this guy's fantasy experience that he is paying to be in, maybe that
Mhm.
is his fantasy. Maybe he fantasizes about his wife being dead. We don't know. But it's his fantasy to build in his mind.
Listen, and in his mind, when he's with a companion, clearly she doesn't exist. The wife doesn't
Right.
exist. And that helps him sleep at night, I guess.
Yep.
My assumption is that it helps his guilt or justification of
Mhm.
seeing companions and providers. And that's fine. We all justify all the work we do, however it is that we do it.
Yeah.
It's that we often keep that secret. Say it. And listen, I will say, as a note to any customer that is watching right now, I don't agree with her language and description. I've never considered a client a parasite in my life. But from someone with the title burnt out hooker, I can tell where she's coming from. She started off saying she's devastated. So she's clearly in the moment of the shock and the hurt. And I think that's fair. So let's give her a little grace on the language before anyone
Right.
gets offended. I don't want anyone to get offended. I've never been in a staff room or a back room where clients were spoken about in that way. An asshole was always called an asshole, let's be real. But we didn't
Right.
berate and degrade clients like that. Because some of them, listen, I met clients that are a lot smarter than I am. So you got to always leave that little bit of room. However, her bluntness, you know I love blunt. Just admire people like that. But it immediately brought me back to one of my favorite shocking stories about this exact topic of when clients lie about who they are. And I was devastated. I was shocked, appalled, upset. I was all of the things. So I'll take you back. It was one snowy Christmas Eve way back when. And my family has always gone to the same church for midnight mass. And since I was an adult and able to choose for myself, I never wanted to go to fucking church, but Christmas was the one time I couldn't get out of it. And let me tell you, in the sex work industry, I was always afraid I was going to burst into flames from the minute I'd walk in the door and be like, I don't belong here. And I didn't have a choice. My family didn't know what I did for work. So I had to go to church. I didn't have some justification or moral foot to stand on. It's you were raised Catholic, we're going to fucking church. Put on your Sunday best. So we would meet my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, everyone that lived in Ontario would all meet at this one church for the same midnight mass all the time. And I figured that was somewhere Ontario enough that it wasn't like the church down the street or like next door.
Right.
It was nowhere near the parlor or anything like that. And you never know where clients come from. So as much as you may think, oh, I'm far enough away from the city, no one will know me here. Wrong. Happens everywhere in other countries where I've run into clients. It sucks, but it's true. Um, Anyways, we're sitting through this lovely mass, dragging on, beautiful choir, the Christmas decorations everywhere, the ambiance is sweet. We're all listening to some old man talk about Jesus, right? So we're all sitting there doing our thing. And comes the middle point of the mass where you're supposed to say, peace be with you, and turn to your neighbors and wish them peace and shake their hands, right? I'm like, peace be with you, peace be with you, Merry Christmas, peace be with you. And by the time I turn the fuck around, I'm face to face with this man who had told me he was a widow that his 2 children and wife had died in a tragic accident years ago, and he would cry in our sessions about this loss because it still felt fresh to him. And every time he'd sleep, he could see it and he could picture it. And anytime he had a hard day and a rough day and a bad moment, this is the thing that would like haunt him all the time. And the only escape I can find is with you, Emily. And so we would have these deeply emotional, deep conversation. Like there was barely any foreplay in these sessions because this man would weep. He would weep to the point that I'd be holding him in my arms and like handing him tissues to wipe his snotty nose. He was so sad about this tragic, tragic experience. And I have to shake hands with this motherfucker who's standing there with his wife and 3 children, not 2, 3, very much alive. Very much all of them knew my parents from the church and was like, oh, hi, Mrs. So-and-so. Hi, Mr. Merry Christmas. La, la, la. And I'm like,
what the fuck?
Oh, no.
I'm actually an escort, and that was an ad that you clicked on.
What?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
This is not right.
This
How
is so
are
embarrassing.
Dude.
You're a Craigslist escort.
Yes. So this wasn't like seeking love or relationships.
Oh
I mean,
my God.
my ad, it was pretty obvious. Like I'm dressed a certain way on a bed, and it was spelled out for you. So so I'm really sorry because that sounds very sweet of you. But
Can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, John, no.
For real?
Okay, so John, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I have a business,
Oh, my God.
okay, where
That's awesome.
Instead of
He's already proud of her.
instead of I sell my time to entertain men as opposed to
There it
seeking
is.
a romantic relationship. This is more intimately.
Wow.
You get it, John?
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Oh, my God. So many things are clicking in his head
Yeah.
right now.
Are those good wows or are those bad wows?
Wow.
Don't be embarrassed, John. I'm sure this has happened to other people, right, Lisa?
First time, not gonna lie.
I did it.
John is one of a kind, though, so I can see why that would happen.
Well, I think that you sort of send mixed messages. I don't want to get combative here, but
Okay.
you did send me mixed messages putting yourself on the dating section of Craigslist, okay? So,
Okay, John, it is in that section in the dating area, but it is still separate. It's pretty clearly defined as
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I used to place the ads on Craigslist, and Craigslist was a thing, and it was a very different section. I just feel his confusion. His shock when it finally clicked was hilarious. It was so genuine. He was like horrified and stunned. That was great. That was great. Oh my goodness.
And anybody who has teenage boys too knows that they lie. That's all they do. And you know how you know they're lying? Because their mouth is moving. They lie. But here's the thing. Sometimes you don't bust them with all of them. And sometimes their lies are so good that you're almost proud of them. You know what I mean? You're like, hey, don't do that again. That's my fucking boys, you know? My son's best, he ran a game on me. My wife and I, we went to Hawaii for vacation. And my parents came to stay with him. So when we come back, we get a DirecTV bill a month later, and there's $200 worth of porn charges. And we're looking at the bill, right? My wife and I, and I'm mad. I'm mad, right? The dude needs to be taught a lesson. Because porn is free. Like, how dumb do you have to be? I got porn in my pocket 24 hours a day. I'm worried about him as a human being if he's still paying for porn. That is the dumbest motherfucking shit I've ever heard of. I'm worried about him walking around in this world if he's still paying for porn. Like, how's he gonna do that? I tell my wife, I'm like, I gotta go down and talk to him. This is so dumb. But here's the deal. I feel like this is gonna be a quick conversation because his MO when he lies is he'll lie, and then if you just show him facts, he's like, yeah, that was me, and that's it. So I have the facts in my hand. I have the bill in my hand. So I figure it's gonna be a quick conversation. So I go down into his room, and I'm like, hey, man. And he goes, yeah. I go, you know anything about this? And here's how I could tell he was going to lie to me.
You're craving something a little extra, aren't you? Subscribe to our Patreon and enjoy the ride.
Wow.
And I can't say anything to anyone. And as I turn back around, I feel my eyes welling up with tears. I've got this lump in my throat that feels like I'm going to throw up. And I'm like, how am I ever going to face this man again? Not only does he know who I am, because he knows my parents' last name, so he knows my last name. I'm on Facebook. You can find me. And he now knows my whole family because the aunts, the uncles, the cousins from everywhere are there.
Yeah.
I now know his entire story is full of shit. And I literally did not know how to process this. I had spent hours. This man had come to see me probably 30 something times. And every single time, at some point, he cried. At every single point, we talked about his tragic loss and how he's recovered, how he finally got back to work, how he's able to get to the gym. Or, Emily, I finally met up with some friends after all this. And the devastation was dragging for years for this man, understandably. It's like happy-go-lucky on Christmas, like Santa's coming tomorrow with his fucking wife and kids. I was so angry. And he did show up. It took him 6 months, and he finally showed up at the parlor. Would you believe he didn't even say sorry or didn't say anything? He didn't cry.
Just carry on like normal?
He just carried on like he was the normal client who didn't cry. There was nothing to weep about anymore. And I still had to be like jerking him off, being like, I'm not mad at you.
I get your shock and awe and disappointment, but you can also, let's look at the bright side, Emily, because instead of all the high mileage activity that could have taken place, that was the structure of your session. So, maybe he was doing you a bit of a favor.
Listen, it's weird to say, but there is an element of that is absolutely true. And then there's the flip coin of that where it was more emotionally taxing to hold a weeping adult man telling you this horrific story. And would I rather just sit on his face and get her done? Absolutely. In some respects, absolutely. And we could still form a very lovely relationship. We could still have a deep connection or have deep talks or all the things. He could still cry. Like there's still other things that make people cry. Like I've had plenty of clients that broke into tears of just the weight of their life kind of spilling out in a vulnerable moment, right? But it was the depth of detail in the deception. It's one thing to say, I'm a widower and just leave it at that. Or my wife died from cancer years ago or something. And you just blurt it out and it's a thing. And maybe we only talk about it once or twice, or you share a little more details. You go different than learn, like in a relationship, when you start dating and you slowly find things out about somebody, right? No one tells you how their grandma passed, right? In the first date. Well, they shouldn't. On the first date where you meet them. But like, this was his identity to me. This was, Frank, the guy who lost his wife and 2 kids in a tragic car accident. Like this was him as far as I knew. Yeah. And the details about the moment it happened and all the ambulances, and it was at night, and he could remember all the flashing lights and the sounds, and it was like a movie. It was like, in the movie, you just like tune out the noise and you hear like the person's heartbeat or like the yelling in the distance and the chaos. And like, he would tell me in so much detail. His wife took a while to pass. She was in hospital for weeks and he would sleep there every night. Like he just went on and on and on about it. And so to know that it was not true, and then to be so brazen as to walk in 6 months later and never be like, so that was weird. Like he never mentioned it. I was just like, hey, how are you? And then somehow our sessions were not weepy or full of deep conversation. It was filled with foreplay and jizz on my boobs by the end. I was like, this is fucking weird. This is weird. This is hard to digest. And I don't think your average person would think that there are elements like that in sex work where a worker is completely thrown off by the weight of an emotion or an emotional moment or a deep connection. And then when it's ripped from you and you're supposed to act the same, that is actually like a little traumatic. It's a little
Mhm.
fucked up. And
Mhm.
it's weird that you have to become not just comfortable with it, but you almost have to practice it. You have to get used to it so that it
Mhm.
doesn't affect you. I mean, I'm sure a cop that investigates murder scenes has to get used to things that are really uncomfortable too,
Right.
right? But who wants that for someone? Like, I
Mhm.
hope you're not around blood and guts so much that you have to be around blood and guts that it doesn't phase you. I wouldn't want that for somebody. There's lots of people in jobs like that, doctors and funeral home directors and EMS people and all kinds of people come across tragedy. But to be so desensitized that it no longer phases you is a really strange and interesting mental space to be in.
Mhm.
And it's one thing when you think sex work, oh, a bad client must mean violence. So if a violent situation happens, a girl has to kind of digest and process that. Maybe she needs therapy after. Maybe she quits the industry. Maybe she bounces back and acts like nothing happened. Everyone handles things differently, right? But I doubt people really consider the other nuanced little pieces and how strange it can be. And so I'm
Mhm.
not mad that he had a fake name and a fake story. I was livid at the amount of detail. I was livid at how invested I was. I was livid that there were times that I shed tears equally because the weight of the story took my breath for moments. Like, it
Right.
was so intimate. I've had less intimate conversations with people I've known for years. And I was like, in church, I'm thinking, you lying fucking cocksucker. And I'm already at risk of being like bursting into flames in this building. Now I'm cursing the man behind me in the middle of mass where what? Jesus is coming tomorrow. Time for this. It threw me so fucking much. I was so internally angry every time that guy came in normal afterwards because I just couldn't get past you lying sack of shit.
Wow.
Just messed me up. And like you said, we've known girls that have fake real names to
Mhm.
protect their privacy. We have girls we've had to practically rescue from their own families because there's so much drama going on if they're almost accidentally found out and things of privacy. Never in a million years would I've put on my bingo card that one time. Sloan says his like entire family was destroyed in a tragedy. And then, oops, just kidding.
It's so why for me. Like, I really wonder because maybe he has some sort of like kink towards sympathy or emotion. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But like I said, I mean, I don't to be in that situation, I totally understand the way you would have felt, and I get that. I don't think clients owe us honesty. I don't think they expect it from us as workers. It's just such a web we weave in the sex work industry, really.
I was so tangled in the web. It's terrible. Get me out of this. Get me out
Yeah.
of this fucked up scenario I didn't ask for. And you're right. I was like the moth, like stuck in the fucking web. And I just didn't know what to do. It was so awkward. And you're right. They don't know a shit in that regard. Let's both have fake names and just enjoy what we're doing. And it
Yeah.
should be that transactional and that simple, right? It's the common like cliche of I don't pay her to stay, I pay her to leave, you know?
Mhm.
It's the ease of using a provider and using the services of a sex worker is it makes it anonymous, it makes it no strings attached and all those things. But don't come in here and weave your strings all through my heartstrings and act like nothing fucking happened. Because lo and behold, aside from my sassy attitude on the podcast, I'm actually a real softie and
Yeah.
very emotional. And I would think about that man in my off times. I would go home with the energy that he kind of dumped on the trauma dump that would happen. And it was like heavy. It was a lot. It was a lot to always like digest. And there's no way to choose who your other clients are that day either. What if all your emotional dudes come in on one same day,
Right.
which would happen thanks to Murphy's Law on the right full moon? And
Yeah.
you're like, today was the worst day. He was in a mood. And to just feel that disillusioned, I had never felt so deceived in a world that's full of deceit. I was like, this is crazy. I was absolutely fucked up over it. And it took me a very, very long time to like, clearly I still haven't let it go.
No, you haven't.
So I get it. And I feel for that girl because you could tell just by the words, it was raw emotion. I don't agree with all the terms. Just the fact that she started off with like, I'm devastated shows how invested she was. And I think the sign and earmark of a great provider is how much she's able to emotionally invest, to give a shit. And she clearly cared about this client. To offer him a discount just based on his life circumstances is so caring, so unexpected, and so rare. He took right advantage, and I think that's a piece I don't like either. That feels a little icky. Yeah, he could have said, "No, I don't need the discount. It's fine."
I agree.
You know,
the world is filled with a bunch of dishonest people.
Give an inch, they take a mile. If only that it worked that way for money and dick, right? Give an inch, I'll take a mile.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it on this one. I don't want to get like fluffy about it, but I'm like Virgie. I can feel the like tears behind my eyes because it's upsetting. But I hope she feels better. I saw a bunch of sex workers replied offering their shared stories too. So if you're in the mood, guys, go check her out. It was a tweet from last week, so it's probably pretty recent if you're scrolling through her stuff. Yeah, support your fellow sex worker, even when they're emotional. Sometimes we just need an extra hug, a good tip, a surprise send of money, and it'll make our day. But it makes it easier because we go through some hard shit. Sometimes it's the unexpected.
Unexpected for sure.
I love it. Well, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Join us on Patreon. If you're not subscribed to the Patreon, you are missing even hotter episodes. All of the scandalous stuff goes on the Patreon because YouTube would not approve. So join us over there, and we'll see you next time on Muse on the Mic. Bye, guys.